Early in 1939, the world scientific community discovered that German physicists had accidentally learned the secrets of splitting an atom. Fear soon spread over the possibility of Nazi scientists utilizing that energy to produce a bomb capable of unspeakable destruction. Under the strong encouragement of Albert Einstein and Enrico Fermi, President Franklin Roosevelt sanctioned a secret government project to help develop the world's first atomic bomb. By late 1941, this scientific attempt was given its code name, the Manhattan Project. This team was led by distinguished physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer. He is the man credited with completing the world's first atomic bomb, which was nicknamed Gadget. He was in charge of the main assembly plant built in Alamos, New Mexico. Oppenheimer and his team of scientists faced many struggles in their endeavor. One of the biggest challenges proved to be keeping the project a secret from the whole world. President Roosevelt did not want any information being leaked to the Axis powers of Germany or Japan. At one point, a Soviet spy by the name of Klaus Fuchs had penetrated the inner circle of scientists. Despite some setbacks, on July 16, 1945, the world entered the nuclear age as the first atomic bomb was detonated at Trinity Site near Alamogordo, New Mexico. The blast created was equivalent to 20,000 tons of TNT, scorching the earth for miles around. A blinding flash visible for 200 miles lit up the sky as the mushroom cloud of fire, smoke, and radiation rose to 40,000 feet. When the cloud returned to Earth, it created a half-mile wide crater, metamorphosing sand into glass. Less than a month after this monumental discovery, the United States utilized the atomic bomb twice in Japan. The majority of the nation praised Oppenheimer for his brilliant invention that helped to end World War II and protect America's security. Robert Oppenheimer did not feel pride at his accomplishments, but instead regret-filled his demeanor. While he was more focused on the scientific aspects of creating such a powerful bomb, the rest of the world was only focused on it as a weapon of mass destruction. Oppenheimer blames himself for putting such a large responsibility of controlling the use of nuclear weapons on the world. Sponsored by the United Nations, the Second United Nations International Conference on the Peaceful Uses of Atomic Energy, better known as the Atoms for Peace Conference, was the largest international gathering ever to focus on the potential of taming nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. In a celebrated address to the United Nations General Assembly on December 8, 1953, Eisenhower heralded a new Atoms for Peace campaign designed to, quote, hasten the day when fear of the atom will begin to disappear from the minds of people. This was on the right track to what Oppenheimer wanted of the atomic bomb. The United States also established a General Advisory Committee to discuss new approaches to nuclear decommissioning and control, assigning Oppenheimer as head of this committee. America was taking necessary steps towards responsible control of nuclear weapons.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
The United States used the atomic bomb twice in a span of 3 days in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and has never again used it, after unwanted side effects and public outcry ensued. The bombings were a response to the Japanese bombings of Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. The American bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which occurred on August 6th and August 9th of 1945 respectively, killed 250,000 people collectively, not only including those who were killed by the acute effects, but also those who would later perish from burns, radiation sickness, and other injuries compounded by illness. The bombings did prove to be effective, however, since the Japanese surrendered to the Allies on August 15, 1945, 6 days after the bombing of Nagasaki. However, the bombings were not necessary, which is why many countries considered the actions of the United States to be immoral and unjustified. The loss of civilians would prove too great for anybody to use the atomic bomb as a common weapon in warfare. The closest that the world has ever come to using nuclear warfare since the attacks on Japan has been the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Cold War reached the climax when the United States blockaded Cuba and demanded that all missiles be removed from Cuba and sent back to Russia. After tense negotiations between the United States President John F. Kennedy and Russian leader Nikita Khrushchev, an agreement was reached. However, the world was scared for a period of 15 days when nuclear war seemed unavoidable between the two countries. The United States was not going to tolerate having their freedom being put at risk with missiles pointed in their direction, so they were adamant about having them removed. The pace at which the leaders worked to resolve this conflict showed how badly they wanted to avoid the unnecessary destruction caused by nuclear war. Many argue that there is never an appropriate or just time to use the atomic bomb. However, there are circumstances when the bomb is the sole option. The only time when it is acceptable to use this weapon of mass destruction is when your country faces an imminent threat which puts the future of the people in danger. An example of this would be a threat of invasion, which would result in capture and significant loss of innocent civilians. Also, in the American circumstance, the loss of liberty would be the greatest threat, which would force them to use the nuclear technology to defend themselves. Although the death of thousands of innocent bystanders can never be justified, and nobody ever deserves to have their life hurt due to something in which they are not a part, if it is the only way to save yourself and your country, and all other options have been exhausted, it may be the course of action which is necessary. Nobody has the right to decide who can and cannot obtain and use nuclear weapons. To relate this to modern times, Iran's argument on the subject of the production of nuclear weapons is that other countries do not have the power to tell them that they can't have nuclear weapons in their possession. They see it as hypocritical since world powers such as the United States own and produce these technologies. The atomic bomb is one of the most important inventions of all time. Not only did the discovery of nuclear energy revolutionize the production of power which drives the world, but the creation of the atomic bomb gave the possessing country great power. With this ability to vaporize entire cities comes great responsibilities. The developed world has no right to dictate separately to developing nations how they choose to use nuclear technology. But these nations must build their own capacity to handle the technology responsibly, both individually and collectively.